the next episode.
Yo, I'm Devin Reed, and I'm on a mission to build a bigger and more inspired career as a marketer, creator, and entrepreneur. I've spent 10 years in sales and marketing, become head of content for $2 billion tech companies, and scaled my side hustle, The Reader, to 6 figures. And now I'm ready to level up my creativity and earning power to hit the next level. Let's rock. But I need more than tips, tricks, and dopamine hits. I want inspiration and expertise that's gonna help me reach my potential. And damn it, I wanna have fun doing it. So I'm traveling America for candid, street-level conversations about creativity, marketing, and playing by your own rules. You'll hear the stories behind the success, unfiltered conversations, vulnerable moments, and practical advice to help you grow your career, confidence, and income. Are you ready? This is Read Between the Lines, the show for people who want to achieve phenomenal results. Today, we're in New York City, and I'm sitting down with one of my good friends and a great marketer, Mark Huber, VP of Marketing at UserEvidence. Now, me and Mark go way back, and we wanted to sit down today and explore his path to becoming a new VP. It's his first time in an executive role, and so I really wanted to explore what did it take to prepare for this executive position, how did he know he was ready, and what steps did he take to prepare? And so if you're looking to accelerate your career and build an intentional one that is fulfilling, you're gonna love this conversation. Are you ready? Let's ride. If I was like, I'm gonna buy you a pair of shoes, not even buy a pair of shoes, you're just gonna get them for free. Like they're just gonna be on your lap. One sneaker, what would it be?
Air Max 90 infrareds.
Ooh, I like how quickly you said the whole phrase because you've said it in your head a bunch of times. What's preventing you from just buying them? They're like $500.
I don't even know. I should buy them.
I think you should treat yourself.
Yes.
One, for being a VP, even though it's 9 months old, and for being on my show. You should treat yourself. I would do it, but the budget's a little low to just be buying everyone shoes. Yeah. You will get some Yo merch in the mail, though.
Sick.
I don't know if you saw the Yo. Did you see it?
Oh, I did. I have it on. No, what if I had it underneath this and just pop my top?
I would have been ecstatic.
I actually thought about it. I was like, nah, don't do that.
If you just started taking off your clothes right now, I would have been surprised and then happily surprised that you had something on underneath. And it was my merch. Are we rolling, David? We're always rolling. By the time I ask, we've been rolling for 10 minutes. Well, man, I'm really excited to have you on the show today. We met in real life for the first time a week ago. And right after we met, we did karate in the garage and became best friends, as they say. So, what I want to talk to you about first is your path to being VP. And I know there's kind of a lot of advice already out there of like how to become a VP, how to become an executive. This is different to me because you're actually my friend and I care about you and your trajectory. But also when we met, we were at kind of the same level, like this like manager, director level, you know, and I feel like we kind of came up together at the same time. You're at Metadata, I was at Gong. And then when you moved to VP, it was kind of like, you know, we were talking like, you know, what was the movie? Goodfellas, I think. It's like one of the neighborhood boys that became a made man. You know, he made it to the executive staff. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit and start there.
Yeah.
And I know that you're incredibly intentional with your career, with your relationships, with your mental health. So I'm curious, like, when did you know you wanted to be a VP and how did you prepare to get there?
So right around this time last year, I was working with a career coach and I kind of thought career coaches were a scam. And I was thinking like, do I want to do this? Is it worth it? I could save that money. I could spend that money. Looking back, I would have paid probably double what I paid for that career coach. So what happened was, and I always take the high road, I was recommended to be the VP. And I was then told that I was not ready to be the VP of marketing. And
was this at Metadata?
Yeah. And grew up playing competitive hockey, still play today. I'm a very competitive person. So when someone tells you like you're not ready to do that, I'm going to do it.
The best motivation is someone telling me I can't do something.
Yeah. So I worked with the career coach and I basically had 6 sessions with weekly homework. And a lot of it was stuff that I had thought of before. But what made it so impactful was writing all of it down. And just putting, I mean, not pen to paper, but typing everything out. Sure. And I had 3 different options, what I thought at the time, which was make a lateral move, go the solo route, or go the VP route. And after I was told that you're not ready to be a VP, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, you are ready to be a VP. So thankfully it worked out. I'm happy where I'm at now. And one of the big conversations that I had at that point in time was with Kyle Lacey. And Kyle was telling me, he's like, cut that shit out of your head if you don't think you're ready for a VP role. He goes, you are ready. And that combo with him sparked me to really believe in myself and go for it.
Well, that has to be powerful validation too, because he's a 2-time CMO. Right now he's at Jellyfish, used to be at Lessonly, really well known in the space. And so I know hearing that probably kind of starts to deteriorate that self-limiting belief. I'm curious, when during those 6 sessions, you breeze past it, you're like, and it all worked out.
Yeah.
And I wrote some stuff down. But what were, I don't know, there's a lot of things, but was there 1 or 2, I don't know, unexpected things or aha moments that made you kind of like get that mental momentum to say, you know what, I am ready and I am going to go for it?
Yeah, I think one of the things was stuff that gives you energy and stuff that takes energy away from you, and writing a lot of those things out that give me energy, and the things that I really enjoy doing are the things that I'm doing right now in this VP level role.
Like what?
And so I would say I love doing the work at the end of the day, but I think managing upward is something that I've always tried to get better at, and I really enjoy doing. It's a moving target. I'm getting better and better, but really showing what I'm doing and communicating the right things in a way that the CEO truly cares about is something that I really, really focus on. And it's something that I spend a whole lot of time on every week, preparing for my weekly 1-on-2 with the 2 co-founders.
Yeah.
And it's something that, I really enjoy doing.
I got to give it to you. I'm learning that skill right now. I wouldn't say it's something I enjoy doing. It's kind of like writing, where it's like there's no joy in writing, only having written. So it's kind of like in the moment, I'm not really enjoying it. But yeah, at the end of weeks, I kind of look back and I'm like, all right, I'm getting better at communicating. And I've been surprised. I'm curious if it's the same for you, is how the level of detail that they actually want is more than I thought, because I didn't think co-founders, CEOs would want to get that much in the weeds.
Yes. And
then the second thing is just the velocity of how many updates they want throughout the week. Like, to me, I'm like, I don't know, like with my directs, you can, pending seniority, every other 3 days or weekly, I'm good. Like, I kind of trust you.
Yeah.
I made that mistake of being like, a weekly update should be enough, and was quickly, we will say, corrected that is not enough. So has that been your experience too? It's just like the amount, and I don't mean to be tedious, but it's just just almost like an information feed. It just needs more detail and more content than I expected.
Yeah. So when I first started doing these weekly updates, I thought, based on what I'd heard on LinkedIn and from other people, that CEOs don't have a lot of time and they want as little detail as possible on like the top 2 or 3 things that you're working on. And maybe that's true for some people, but Evan, my boss, told me, no, I want more detail. So
He told you at least.
Yeah. So great that he told me instead of me trying to figure that out myself. But I do a weekly update for like 45 minutes with the 2 co-founders. And there are basically what I do is top 3 priorities for the week, things I need feedback on, stuff that I want to discuss with them, and then async updates. And the async updates is where they want all the detail.
Yeah. And
I probably spend, I would say, close to a half hour every week writing out like all the async updates. And the thing that really surprised me is they read all of it.
Well, I think that's a good thing too, because it sucks when you do all that work and then they don't read it, and then you get into the meeting and they're like 4 or 5 days behind, or week behind. It's like, okay. And I get it. We're all human and we're all busy. So, okay, managing up, hat tip to you. One of my least favorite things. Maybe that'll change in a few months. Was there any other thing from that that coaching experience that you said, okay, these are some of the kind of aha moments?
Building teams.
Yeah.
And playing team sports my entire life. And, I was a captain on many of those teams, and just building the right kind of groups of people that you want to work with and work for. And it's something that I've really, really enjoyed and gotten, better at. I've been a manager for a while now, and I think I've learned a lot just by way of making so many mistakes along the way. And then also how I've been managed before and what I usually don't like. So I know not to do that.
What's one of those things? What's one of the things you're like, when I'm a VP, I'll never do that?
The micromanaging. I'm not going to name names, but it was really one of the first managers. Actually, no, second manager that I had. My first manager whipped me into shape. I randomly saw her, Amanda Kranz. I'll make sure she listens to this. I randomly saw her at O'Hare like a couple weeks ago and gave her a big hug.
Oh, nice.
She whipped little Mark into shape. But there's another manager that I had that was just micromanaging every single detail, and it just sucked the life out of me. Like, when that happens to you, you're like, do you want to do the job?
Yeah.
Why am I here? So I wanted to make sure that I did not do that and give people the space to do their thing. And I think, especially with one of the recent hires that I just made, you got to hire people that are better than you in the particular area that you're hiring them for. And I think at first I had a tendency of, well, that's going to make me look bad if they're better than I am at something. It's like, no, that's exactly what you want to hire for.
So when I was prepping for this, and I almost feel like this is a backhanded compliment when I first started thinking about it, which was like, I'm looking at your resume on LinkedIn basically, and I'm trying to figure out like, what's this guy's superpower? Like, where's his specialty? And I couldn't find it. And so I just openly kind of told you this. I'm like, are you a brand guy? Are you a demand? What way would you kind of position it? And you said, I'm kind of like intentionally a generalist. And that's helped you get to this VP level. Can you tell me more about that?
Yeah, I think being a generalist sometimes has a negative connotation attached to it.
A little bit.
And for me, I grew up in consulting. I love the variety of just work and doing different things. And I knew that I wanted to really focus more on marketing, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. One thing that I knew that I did not want to do was go back to school and get an MBA with like a marketing focus in it. I didn't really think it was relevant for me. So I had this idea that I was going to do basically stints in all these different functions to round out my perspective. And I didn't know the exact order of what those stints would be. I didn't think it was going to be, do this for 2 years and then move on to this for 3 years or anything like that. But I knew that I wanted to be a CMO at a B2B software company someday. So I think for me, doing all of those stints in, digital marketing, marketing operations, there was a hot minute where I was about to take the Marketo Certified Expert exam. Do you think I'm really a Marketo guy? No. I got into demand gen. I got into growth. I got into brand and product marketing and, doing content basically in a lot of those roles, which ultimately led me to where I am now. And I think for me, being able to do so many different stints and not just do it at like a surface level, but be able to go like 2 and sometimes 3 levels beneath, what most people can talk about in a given function. Has helped me so much because I'm able to have pretty credible conversations with a lot of different functions, even though I'm not an expert in that area. And it helps me see really the full picture of what good B2B marketing looks like.
I love that so much because one of my favorite song lyrics is you can accomplish anything with a solid plan. That's Larry June for anyone wondering. And I love that you had an intentional, like you had a end goal, which I just learned is actually CMO. So we're getting closer.
Yes,
we're getting
we
closer.
are.
But the fact that you were intentional with not just the next job that I want and having kind of blinders on and then just thinking one step at a time, but you're thinking like 4 or 5 steps ahead, and you're willing to invest the time and energy it takes to get there kind of correctly. So you're prepared for the role. And I know you still had some some self-doubt and stuff as we all do when we make that leap. But I really respect that because I feel like now, and there's a lot of reasons, we won't go into it, but I think people want success as absolutely fast as possible. It's bragged about, like, how can you go from 0 to blank in as little time? And I just respect someone that kind of commits to the craft, commits to their career and goes, look, I'm going to get there my way at my pace. And that's my, you know what I mean? And feel confident in that.
Yeah. I think the coolest part, and I'm sure you can definitely relate to this too, is so much of it was just self-taught, either by watching stuff on YouTube, listening to podcasts, following people on LinkedIn, doing the actual work and messing up usually. And then learning by way of that. And like I hate to say this, my dad will probably watch this. He loves being a little fanboy for me, proud dad. I don't really use much of my undergrad marketing degree, truthfully. Like, I don't know if undergrad marketing classes have changed much. If it's,
I've heard this before, that they're not as like the marketing degree doesn't really apply to real world too well. Not always, but
and I'm sure it's changed. I mean, gonna be 34 here in a couple of weeks, so I would hope that they're doing or teaching digital oriented classes now in undergrad. But so much of what I've learned has just been on my own and doing the actual work. And I think when people reach out to me on LinkedIn and whatnot of how do I do this, or what do you recommend doing, I kind of recommend a lot of the same things that I did, of like, go follow these people, go listen to these podcasts, soak up as much as you can, and actually try to do the work. And if you do that and commit to doing that over an extended period of time, like, you'll get there. It just doesn't happen overnight.
So what did it actually feel like I don't know, maybe at the interview because to me there's probably stages, right? There's like, okay, I'm now going to go be a VP. I've decided it. That's probably, I'm going to speculate, some feel exhilarated and maybe a little nervous, right? And then you're going through interview processes, and then you actually sign the contract. Now it's official, and then there's actually starting. Can you take me through kind of the motions you felt during that? Because I think it's validating for people listening, and myself included, if you're considering becoming a VP, to know what it feels like for other people. So when they go through it, you know what I mean? They don't feel so alone.
Yeah, I would say, I interviewed a fair amount for roles just to get, I hadn't interviewed in a long time. So I call it getting back into interview shape. Yeah. So all the roles that I interviewed for before, and there's probably like, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 VP level roles that not the right fit, not the right stage, not the right company, whatever, but it got me to a point that when the right role came around, which is where I'm at right now, that I was in interview shape. So I was so much more confident. So I'd say one piece of advice would just be to probably start interviewing for that particular role before you're truly ready for it, so that you get some practice, you kind of get your talk track down, you get a little bit more confidence. And I think the funny part is of how I got to UserEvidence. So the last interview was a 90-minute working session with myself and the 2 co-founders, Evan and Ray. And it was, assume you got the gig, what do your first 6 to 12 months look like? And I'd never put as much time into really any interview or like working session ever, because I wanted it that bad.
Yeah.
So I put a whole marketing plan together of what I was going to do. And then before I got into the actual plan, I had one slide that said, before we get into everything else, here are the 3 things we're not going to do in my first 6 months.
What were those? Got to give them to me.
Redo the website, update the brand, or spend money on paid ads.
Which are basically the 3 things, if you're at least for us, because we know how the sausage is made, when you see a company change their website or their brand colors or their name, my first thought is like, they probably got a new CMO 6-ish months ago. So I love that you did that. What was their response to that?
This is where it gets a little wild. So Evan goes, I totally agree, but we just raised our Series A and we need to announce it by the end of the summer. So within your first 45 days, you got to update the website. And I told him, I was like, oh my God, I could do it. It's going to be absolute mayhem for, the first month and a half that I was there. I did it in 28 business days.
Was it copy, the whole, like the design?
Positioning, messaging, website copy, the design, the branding.
Full overhaul.
Everything. And it was wild. And it was, I think, honestly, looking back, and I have another mentor, Brad O'Neill, who has just done wonders for me. He got, he was kind of that little voice in my head of that helped you out so much with them, because it got a very noticeable big win early. And I never looked at it that way. I was just like, oh, this is crazy. This is so much work. Like, how am I going to get through this? But I think doing that right out of the gate helped me just establish so much more trust with the co-founders. And they knew that, all right, we can really trust this guy to do his thing. And, they're still on me and they're still pushing me and asking the right tough questions, as they should. But it did me wonders right out of the gate. And I would never do it again, but it was it was a good experience.
Well, there's some sort of sick and sweet irony that you're like bold enough to be like, I'll be your VP, and these are 3 things we're not going to do. And they're like, we hear you, but I bet too, there's 2 things, and you touched on one of them. I think first is you showed flexibility and like being a team player. And I know team player is a little cliche, but it's like, look, even if someone joins a team, starkly disagrees, is willing to understand there's an opportunity. New information was actually presented to you. Mm-hmm. So you know what I mean? It was like a pivot, if you will, a good one. And the other one was trust that you can get the job done in a short amount of time. So I think that is a huge thing for your trajectory at that company. Mm-hmm. And something I coach folks, usually more like head of content marketers. And they're like, Dev, what should I do in the first 30, 60, 90? Because that's usually what you get asked at like that level role. Mm-hmm. And I say, don't get a big win, get a quick win. Get something visible as fast as possible. Like it could be something like a webinar or something. I know it's not as big as a website, but if you just look at like the difference in roles and scope, it's like get something quick, get something visible so people trust you and know you right away, especially if you're in like a big organization. Yeah. So I love that you pulled that off. And I loved, I would love to see if you happen to have before and after like screenshots of homepage and stuff. I'd love to take a look.
Yeah. I think it was at one of the recent board meetings that we had. I did a how it started versus how it's going.
Oh, really?
And
Okay.
put side by side. And this is why we kind of had to do it outside of the Series A announcement, but the website was 100% custom and managed in-house by our own engineering team. So if they wanted to change a single word on the homepage, it had to go through the engineering team. So it was partially like, let's get onto
Do it the right way.
CMS that the marketing team can manage, because the engineering team has more important things to be doing, like building an actual product.
Yeah.
Not making landing pages for me.
Yeah.
So yeah. But no, I think the other cool part was I did this at the 6-month mark. I actually went back and looked at my presentation for that final working session and compared what I actually did in those first 6 months to what the original plan was. Didn't nail it like 100%, but I would say I probably got, I don't know, 70-ish% there. And the plan was aggressive.
Good.
So like it was a win in my book.
I especially lately have very rare, lately, like last couple years, and I don't blame this on the companies I work for. I think it's the teams you're with and the market and all the changes we've gone through. But I'm like, I have faith in my my quarterly plan, but I don't have faith that like the world and the universe are going to let me execute it on that, right? It's like 50%
So
maybe.
much changes.
So the fact you got 70% of a 6-month plan is really impressive.
Yeah, it was one of those times where I wouldn't say I'm the smartest person by any means, but I work really, really hard, and I think I'll outwork most people. And I think for me, it was just getting so re-energized again in the work that I was doing, and then having the autonomy to actually do the work and be the guy. And once I got that big win under my belt, in the first like month and a half that I was there, I then told myself, I was like, all right, you are the guy, like you can do this.
Yeah.
And
you're doing it.
Yeah. Like
not
you
that
are
I can
doing
do it. I'm doing it right now.
And then having the proof to kind of back it up is it's a good feeling.
That's rad, man. Well, where did you said I work harder than most people. That's something I like to kind of pride myself into. Where did that come from? Because I know you don't come from, you don't come from a tech family.
No, this is going to be great. So there's a reason why I'm going to tell this story, but I am probably the least handy person that you have ever met in your entire life.
I saw you try to put a straw in your drink before this, and that was a struggle a little bit.
We weren't going to talk about the straws. I'm straw boy. So the reason why I bring up that I'm the least handy person that you know is I'm the 4th generation in a 83-year-old family woodworking business. So William Huber Cabinet Works in Logan Square. They do like really high-end woodwork in law firms, sick tech offices, you name it. And I don't work there. I'm here with you right now. And it was something that I picked up on just by way of seeing how my grandpa ran the business and how hard he worked, seeing how hard my dad worked, and didn't come from like very much growing up, and just seeing how hard they worked and how selfless they were. And it was actually my first job. I swept the floors when I was 14 and did a lot of random stuff and in the shop, and it was cool just to see all of that firsthand. And I've always wanted to do my own thing, and I totally respect the business and I'm super proud of it. But it's shaped a lot of who I am as a person, and I love talking about it.
You said was your grandfather or great grandfather came from Germany, I think you said?
Yeah. Came over when he was like, I think 18 at Ellis Island, I believe, with a suitcase, and didn't speak any English. And I think he actually got robbed when he was coming over, my dad said. So like, can you think of being 18 years old and going to a new country with a suitcase and whatever money you have in there? And
no,
yeah,
I can't think of anything harder. My wife is Indian. Her family did a similar story. Come to the country, 18, 19, 20, couple bucks in your pocket, don't know the language.
Yeah,
there's no knock on people that were born here, but I cannot imagine doing that, and the amount of hustle and determination and grit and all those things it would take to just maintain a life, to just live here, let alone thrive. And then in a couple generations, kids are going to college and all that. It is truly inspiring, and I've had a deeper appreciation for it through her and through your family story as well. And so when you have this legacy built up, though, so was it grandfather or
great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather comes, has this story, then sets up the shop.
Yep.
His son does it.
Yep.
His son does it. Here comes Mark. Can't put straws in drinks, but can sweep.
Yeah.
Sweep.
I was actually bad at it too.
You could
he caught me in like a lot of the shop work. I still go back occasionally to like go say hey and just check it out. And they always bring up like funny stories of me doing just random stuff that I wasn't supposed to be doing because I was having too much fun.
Well, so I'll tag on this and I'll get back to what I was saying, which was my dad. I come from blue collar as well. Coal miners, gold miners, and construction workers. Kind of sounds like a tagline for some weird reason, but and my dad was in construction, so through college I would go work there in the summers. I would go do iron work for anyone who's familiar. If you're familiar with, I'm sorry, it is rough. It is a tough gig. Luckily, only was there for 3 months. I don't know if I would have lasted longer if my dad wasn't the boss, candidly, but that's okay. But it did give me the appreciation of what real hard work is, like waking up at 3 a.m, working all day in 112-degree heat in Stockton, California, and doing it day after day. You get to a tech job, and the hardest days are not as hard as they are, there. And so I appreciate that kind of blue collar work ethic as well. When you had this family legacy, what was the experience telling your dad like, hey, I'm going to go to, I'm guessing I'm going to go to college and not be a better sweeper. Like I'm putting the broom down.
Yeah. So I think I told you this when we were grabbing dinner in Austin, and it's a hilarious story, or at least I think it is. So what happened was, I go to Indiana University for undergrad, major in marketing. And, I knew all along that I wanted to do my own thing. I didn't know that I wanted to get into tech, but I knew that I wanted to, do my own thing and get out of the family business. Well, I had never told that to my dad. So after graduation, I forget when exactly it was. It definitely wasn't graduation day, but I think it was, sometime that summer when I started to interview for jobs, I knew that I had to tell my dad, hey, I don't want to work in the family business. And I was not excited for that conversation. I was really nervous. Honestly, I felt a little guilty and felt like I was letting them down, that I wasn't going to continue this forward. And I was, ending the legacy in some ways. So I get around to, having this conversation with my dad. And I think I was probably visibly shaking, nervous, like sweaty hands, you name it. And I start to deliver the message, and I must have gotten like 20, 30 seconds in, and my dad stopped me and he goes, Mark, we've known since you were 5 years old that you didn't have a handy bone in your body and you weren't going to be taking this thing on. And I was like, thank you.
Heavy sigh of relief.
Ever since like then, my dad is super happy for me and loves to kind of be my fanboy on LinkedIn. He doesn't really know what he's liking or what he's commenting on, but I love whenever I see his face pop up. And it's great because he also is very open with me. He's like, Mark, I can't really give you a whole lot of career advice because what you do is so different to the world that I know. He's only worked at one job his entire life. So there are things that I'll go to, him with, but it's very few and far between just because the worlds are so different. Yeah. But like I said earlier, just seeing that firsthand and, what it's like to, he literally opened the shop at like 5 a.m. for, 30 years. And he just told his two cousins, who are the other business partners, the other day, that, hey, I'm 65 years old now. I'm not going to open up the shop anymore. Somebody else can do it. And funny enough, he got a call. I think it was the first day that he slept in and woke up at 6:30. Somebody tried to open it and they didn't know how to do it because he had been the only one doing it for like 30 years.
Oh, the irony. Irony. Oh man, that's funny because I have a very similar experience where first of all, I hope we see Mr. Huber in the comments right now. Yes. Whatever channel platform you're watching this on, we hope we see the comment there. But I did the same thing when we launched the trailer for this show. I'm sending it to my dad and my grandma, his mom, because that's who I'm really close to, my aunt. And I'm I know they don't really know what's going on, but they'll just think it's cool to see an edited video, candidly. And so I sent it to him, and my dad goes, he goes, son, I don't really know what you do, but this is cool and I'm proud of you. And it's just cool. It's just cool to have a connection even without that deeper, marketing and SaaS and all that. But it's a cool feeling and a cool way for me, at least for me, I'm curious what you think is the legacy continues. It's just a different style. The legacies just change, but it's still providing for yourself, making a name for yourself, and doing it in a really respectable way. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that was something that I've learned really over the years and since that conversation with my dad, and that, you can create your own legacy,
with your name, the last name that's on the building at Huber Cabinet Works, you just don't have to do it in woodworking as long as you're, working hard, treating people, very well, not being, too big for any particular task and putting the work in, and just generally being, a humble person that, people want to work with. And, whether it's woodworking or whether it's slinging SaaS and a VP of marketing role, like you can still do the same thing.
You said the company's called Huber Cabinet Works?
William Huber Cabinet Works.
I want to see a Huber Marketing Works. Like if you go solo, like it needs to be like the same style sign, like your logo or something.
We have merch too. I'll make sure I get you some merch.
The cabinet company has merch?
Yes.
I am a large?
Yes.
And I would love some.
Yes.
I'm going to wear it on the show.
Dad, let's hook it up. Yeah.
That'd be great. I'm going to be a little selfish and turn it towards my legacy for a second. But it was something you said also in Austin, which was, I'm congratulating you on very late for being VP. I'm telling you how proud I am of you.
I appreciate that.
And you're like, what's up with you, Dev? Like, what are you going to do? Are you going to stay at Clary? Are you going to go, where are you going to go solo? And I kind of said like, look, I don't know is the honest answer quite yet. But, if I stayed in SaaS, like as a 9 to 5, it would be a VP role. I took a lateral role from going to Clary. I don't want to say, I don't know, if saying I've mastered the craft feels a little too arrogant, but I feel like I've done a very good job at this level. But you know what I mean? Like I would never like say that, but
I'll just say it for you.
I feel like I've done enough to be like, okay, I'm ready for the next level. And you said something really interesting that caught me off guard a little bit. So I said, I kind of gave you this like 2-3 minutes. If I go right, I do this. If I go left, and if I go, keep going straight. And you kind of like look down for a sec. I don't know if you're like thinking I wanted to hear this, and you looked up at me and you went, I don't know if you like being a VP dev. What made you say that? I'm curious.
So your read on my kind of pause of, does he want to hear this or does he not want to hear exactly what was going on in my head? I was like, I don't know if he wants to hear this, but I told you.
Yeah.
And I think you're just so committed to your craft and like you want to, I hate the term create, but like you want to create things. And I think being a VP, you kind of get away from that work. And I don't know if you would be truly happy in that position because I feel like I know what makes you happy when it comes to the work and you're damn good at it.
Thank you.
I think you'd also be a great VP, like I told you in that conversation, because I think you'd be good at anything. But I think knowing what truly, truly interests you and motivates you when you get into that VP level role, especially as you build a team and hire more people, like you get yourself removed from that sort of thing.
Well, I brought it up because I was interested. Yeah. Like no one's ever told me that. Like, but I could tell. One, it was like you could tell in the kindness, and I know your intention, but I don't think enough people give honest feedback in that way. They would be like, you in your head, you like, I don't think Dev would like it, but that's not the nicest thing to say in the moment. So I'm going to say, Dev, you could do great at it, and then I leave with the like, maybe I should do that instead of like the honest advice. And really, the thing in my head was kind of a, I don't know if it's a fear. I would say it's a concern. I wouldn't say it's a fear. Is going the executive route and two things happen. One of them you just said. Mm-hmm. You get removed from the creative work because the creative work happens at like, just call it the ground floor where ICs are and then managers, directors. And depending on the size of your organization, you can be 4 or 5 layers and 100 people. That might be big, but in some companies, 100 people away from the real work. Mm-hmm. And that makes me nervous. Like, cause it's like I get, further away from what I love. Mm-hmm. Speaking of being further away from what I love, the other fear would be more time invested in my day job, less time with my family. And then I'm like very slowly doing less of the things I love, seeing less of the people I love, and, wake up 5-10 years later saying, man, I've made it, air quotes. I have money, but the passion and the joy, you know what I mean? So I'm not projecting it on you by any means, but that's like how I was feeling. So when you shared that with me, it was like validating in some way, but I'm curious too, like, how do you kind of think about it as, a newly minted executive? Like, how do you kind of setting boundaries? Yep. One, to make sure I guess you're doing the work you want, but also spending the right amount of time with your career because you are intentional with your personal life. Yeah.
So a couple things stand out to me. I'd say the first thing was when I was working with that career coach, I wanted to find a role where I could still do the work, right? Not just, being a team lead and just managing and just dealing with all of that is the only thing that you do. So I wanted to find the right role where I could still get in there and do creative work and find that right balance. So that was important to me. I think the other thing was, and this really stood out to me in the interview process. So Evan, my boss, the CEO, it's kind of wild. I might have to tell this story after I give you my answer, but he is a Avalanche certified snowboarder. He's a crazy person. And he was actually caught in an avalanche and buried alive a couple years ago.
Wow.
And survived. And he said that was really a turning point, as you can imagine, in your life. And it really changed how he looks at work and boundaries and how he wants to run this company. So what was funny was I actually found the video when I was doing my homework on him. There's a video of him on like a news clip, basically. And they're shoveling the snow to get him out of there. And I'm thinking to myself, like, this guy's crazy. He's, this is who you're going to work for. But after I talk with him, and now after having worked for him for like 9 or 10 months, he really, really wants to create a culture where you have a very fulfilling life outside of work, because he believes that when you have a very fulfilling life outside of work, that actually benefits the company, because you bring that with you to work. And when you're doing great work and you're really enjoying your experience at your company, that also brings itself back to your personal life. So he's one of those very few people who I've seen talk about that. I mean, everybody talks about it, but he actually practices it and then follows it up. One of the times that I was with my girlfriend Courtney and her family in Palm Desert in California in January, and I'm a national park dork. I have no shame.
Are you?
Oh yeah. And
favorite national park off the cuff, I gotta ask.
Glacier National Park in Montana. It is the coolest place on earth. Even if you're not a national park person, I'm telling you, I'll show you pictures after. It is wow. Yeah, it's unreal.
Learning things about Mark Huber on the show.
So,
I like it.
I told them I was going to be working while I was out there that week. And on one day, I was going to be off the grid. I was going to Joshua Tree. So we went to Joshua Tree. So cool. Can't recommend the place enough.
I've been one time.
But it was the day that I was supposed to be at Joshua Tree. And I knew that we were going to be gone for most of the day, but I was trying to get some work done in the morning before I went off the grid. And again, this is before I had made my first full-time hire. So I'm managing 8 to 10 freelancers, like 5 agencies, like just coordinating everything. And he slacks me. He's like, stop. Like, you're supposed to be out today. And I thought to myself in the moment, I was like, when has a CEO ever told you that? Really?
Yeah.
So Evan is awesome to work for, but he really just practices what he's been preaching. And I think that was very important to me, because I love to have a life outside of work. I like to really unplug on weekends and not talk about B2B marketing. And it's good for me.
Did you surface this during the interview process, either directly or indirectly, that this was the kind of CEO there is? Because I've learned this too, which is, and I'll say CEOs, maybe just managers, honestly, in general, because it can be your direct manager, even if you're not at a VP level. But I think it stems from the CEO, though, like, the culture of like, there's there's many types of CEOs, but in this type, there's like, I live to work.
Yep.
This company is everything, and everyone here, this needs to be your everything. You took a heavy side because like, yeah, but I know that.
Yeah.
And then there's what you just described, which was, I know that if I can provide a culture where people are their best selves at work and out of work, overall, that will help the company thrive. I don't know if that's cliche to folks listening, but I'm telling you, like, at this point in my career, that's something I wish I'd known about 8 years ago. Yeah. Like, align yourself with those values. If you love working and all you want to do is work, I don't judge you. Just go find that company.
Yeah.
At least the people I hang out with, it's not most of the people is that. So it's like, how did you find or how did you confirm that like Evan and UserEvidence is that kind of place? Yeah.
So I'd say both directly and indirectly. So we talked about it throughout the interview process, which was great. But then I was so intentional with back channeling him and just talking to a bunch of people who knew him, and everything checked out, everything was consistent, and everything that I was hearing from them was also what he was sharing with me. So it was one of those things that was like, this is wild. Like, it's all kind of coming together, and it's coming together consistently. So yeah, it's been amazing. I think one of the things it's funny, but it's true. If you go to our company page, it shows some of the benefits. So we're headquartered in Jackson, Wyoming, and we've got, I would say a fair amount of the company is just somewhere in the Mountain West in the US. We have a powder policy, truly, on our company page. If there is more than 7 inches of snow in your town, you can take the rest of the day off and go ski or snowboard. And it like people do it.
That's rad. And I was going to ask, like almost jokingly, if you you might already ski or snowboard, but do you ski or snowboard, or like will you start basically? Like, are you going to start now?
All right. So this is the funny story that I was going to tell.
Okay.
Yeah. So grew up in the Midwest. I skied maybe like twice in the Bunny Hills of Wisconsin,
Okay.
and then didn't really start skiing until probably like 6 or 7 years ago. My younger sister, I've only got one. She lives out in Colorado, so we do ski trips. I would say like maybe once a year. So
Nice.
in total, I probably skied, I don't know, maybe like 20 times in my life. So not much.
Decent, more than me. I've done it one time.
And I think a lot of it comes from, it's actually kind of funny, but one of the guys that I skied with in this story who works at UserEvidence, I think he almost qualified for the Olympic team like years ago. So like we're talking really, really good skiers. He goes, you ski like a hockey player. And I was like, what does that mean? He's like, your legs are so low. He goes, you have to be so tired right now. I was like, yeah, my legs are burning.
Is it obvious how exhausted I am?
Yeah. So this is kind of cool. But when we had the board meeting in Jackson when I was originally supposed to record with you, and I felt bad.
Is that the time that you swore you would be on my show if I was ever in Chicago, and then I set the date and you said yes, and then you dusted me to go be a VP and do your first board meeting?
Yes.
Unacceptable.
That's the exact time. So
laying it on thick, because obviously you actually felt very bad.
I felt
was like,
so bad.
I was like, dude, like I was excited to have you. Then you're like, we're like booking or whatever. And you're like, dude, I'm so like you came in so heavy hearted. Like, I'm so sorry. I was like, dude, you're a first time VP at your first board meeting. Like, I'm rooting for you. Go. And then we got to meet here in New York anyway. So it worked out.
It worked out perfectly.
I had to throw back.
So it was the first time that I presented in person at this board meeting.
Yeah.
And we had the board meeting in the morning, rocked it. And then in the afternoon, we were going to go skiing with Evan, a couple people from UserEvidence, and then 2 of our board members who...
Sorry, can I pause you real fast?
Yeah.
What is more terrifying, the first board meeting or then having to go ski with all of these like executives who are super good at snowboarding?
The latter.
The latter.
Yes, without hesitation.
Clearly.
Because like I prepped really well for the board meeting. Thank you, Kyle Lacey.
Spent
for
all your
helping
time there and no time prepping for skiing.
Yeah. So we get out there and we skied Jackson Hole, which I don't know if you know much about skiing.
I don't. I'm a West Coast. Like,
so it's like known as being one of the most challenging places to ski in all of the U.S. Awesome. It's very, very steep, and I knew of that from a couple friends who had skied there before and warned me. It was always something that I wanted to do, but I didn't really know whenever I would have the opportunity. So when are you going to get to present at a board meeting and then go ski with the board members? So I'm out there trying to make sure I don't fall, trying to make sure I keep up with all of these people who are lifer skiers, very, very good. And we get to this part on the mountain, and I forget the name of it, but there's a picture that I'll show you afterwards because you will die when you see it. It's hanging up in our office.
We can show it on the show.
Okay,
if that's okay.
perfect.
We can pop up like right now.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So we get to this part on the mountain, and Evan, everything to Evan is super chill. That's like, he just says super chill everything. So he goes, we're going to take our skis off and our snowboards off, and we're going to hike up this and go up there. It's a super chill hike. And then we're going to go down over there. So here I am, really intimidated. The board members are right there. My boss, the CEO, is right there. And I don't want to look like,
the new marketing, the new young marketing exec can't hang. Yeah.
And I look up and I look down, and then I look up again, and I just tell myself, I'm like, Mark, you don't have to do this. Don't do it. And I looked at him, I said, Evan, you know what? I'm good. I'll do it next year. And I skied down, an already difficult, run myself, and just met everybody down at the bottom. And the funny part was I asked one of our board members who was there, Gabby, she went up with Evan and the other board member, Les, and then some of the UserEvidence people. It's like, all right, so how was it actually? And she was like, it was so bad. I would never do that again.
So I respect that decision because I have a somewhat similar story. So I have been snowboarding once and I have been skiing once. And snowboarding was with, I don't know, 8 years ago in Tahoe. Some of my, how it is, your friends go get to the cabin. You're really there to party. But there's enough people like you're there to snowboard, but really I was there to party. So
ski trips.
We go up there. So there was one of my buddy Alex Whippy, and he's very good. He like grew up on the slopes. He's really good. Like taught snowboarding and skiing and all that. So he was nice enough while everyone good went to like the intermediate stuff. He rocked on like the little bunny, not the like actual kids ones, but like the easiest what I'll say grown person hill. And he was very kind because it took me forever to get down this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so grateful. He's like, are you ready for like the next thing? I'm like, cool. So me, him, and my friend Katie, we take the lift up to this thing, and I look down at this hill, and every thing in my DNA was like, do not strap up and go down this thing. Like, it's not going to go well for you. You were skilled enough to ski down where you were. I was unable to. They had to stop the lift, put me on there by myself, holding my board, no one going up or down. They just sent me down. And how many people were just looking at me like, this guy better have a broken arm or leg, because at the bottom, no one's going up for like 10 minutes because this like, guy who's over his head. It was, I don't know, 30 degrees outside, and I was flush with heat and embarrassment. Like, I was absolutely miserable. And the reason why I made that decision was earlier in the day, someone was on the actual, like, what's that thing called? Like, when you're like the stretcher. Someone had actually fallen and broken their leg and was like on the stretcher early in the morning. And I remember being like, dude, it's way better to be embarrassed for 40 minutes than it is to have a broken leg for 12 months or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have not. I've gone skiing since, but ever since then, I'm like, dude, don't even take me to intermediate. Don't take me up the hill.
There was one, and I'm blanking on the name again, but it was the final run of the day. You can take another lift up at Jackson Hole to go basically to the top, or at least where the highest point the lift will take you. And I didn't ask where we were going. They're like, oh yeah, let's go for one more run.
Super chill.
Yeah, super chill.
I like you said, by the way, super chill hike to go further up to snowboard down.
Yeah,
like that's like kind of like already counter, like goes against these,
Yeah, and I would say ski boots are the most uncomfortable thing in the world to walk on a flat surface, let alone hike in. So yeah, but we get in the lift. We're packed in like sardines. People, mind you, this is like an expert hill, so there's not any bad skiers or snowboarders there. And we get all the way to the top where it lets us off. And right as we are, I don't know, probably like 10, 15 seconds before we're about to get off, one of the lifties like gets on the little PA system in there and says, and I should have asked before, but he goes, this is an expert level run. If you do not want to go down this run, you can stay on and ride this back down. And I looked at the board member. I was like, well, I guess I should have asked you that beforehand. And he goes, it's not bad. I promise. And it was the hardest skiing I've ever done before. Thankfully, I think only fell once, and it was a little fall. It wasn't like a yard sale where everything just everything is
that was the one time I fell when I went skiing. So I went skiing later when I was a little bit older in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And I'd never heard yard sale, but that's funny because I was decent at decent at skiing. It's much easier. But I remember falling, and I wouldn't say that I hit the ground so much as the ground hit me. Like, that's how fast I was, just from here to my face. Like, I remember just feeling snow and impact very quickly. Not a good feeling. And I stood up. I was like, all right, cool. I'm a little dazed for a sec. I'm just getting like oriented. And I start walking, and I feel unbalanced. And I realized one of my skis was like 14 feet way over there. And so seeing me like do this maneuver while people are flying by, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, just, whizzing by me. And I'm like, I think I just have to put it back on and keep going. Yeah. And so that's what I did. But yeah, so, well, I mean, there's some sort of theme here, Mark, which is, even when you think you're over your head a little bit, you kind of just go for it.
Yeah.
I respect that.
Yeah. It's something that I don't think that I've always had that, but I think as of, I don't know, the last couple of years, I've really trusted myself more and believed in myself more. And I think, are you a golf guy?
No.
All right. So you probably don't know who Max Homa is?
No.
All right. So I'm going to teach you a little bit here. One of the few things that I can teach you on. So the Masters were last weekend. Max Homa was in the thick of it on Sunday, and he was interviewed. I think it was after his round on Saturday, and he had never really been in contention at the Masters before. And they were asking him, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And he said one of the coolest things that I've heard in a while, which was, I'm going to believe in myself. I'm a dog, and I'm built for moments like this, or ready for moments like this.
I love that.
And I think, granted, he just said that on Sunday or Saturday, and it's kind of been going viral lately. But I think having that mentality in myself over the last couple of years has really just done so much more for my confidence, and in like a humble way, like not overly confident.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah. And like, I don't like to be, the kind of overly confident person that you and I probably despise, but I think being much more confident in myself and my abilities and getting the negative kind of self-talk out of my head it's kind of turned me into a different person, truthfully.
I was about to say you are the Mark I've known over Zoom wasn't didn't lack confidence, but the Mark I've gotten to know, and we've hung out a lot in the last from never having hung out in person to the last week, we've hung out quite a bit, and I would describe you as like quietly confident in that you are on the quieter side, but there's like the people that like you either are about it or you talk about it, and you just are doing your thing. And then when people ask, you're willing to talk about it, but you're not, beating your chest or anything like that. And so, that's how I describe it. And I think that confidence probably comes from you set out a plan when you're kind of what I consider like, I know the tipping point has a different context as well, but when you have this plan mapped out, to me, somewhere around that 50% mark, when you're on the back half of it, then your confidence really starts to pick up because you're closer to the finish line or the next big milestone than you are. Is that kind of part of yours, do you think, or is it some other stuff you've been working on?
No, I think it definitely is. And I think over probably the last 2 or 3 years and just seeing some of the success that I've had has motivated me a little bit more. And I think I've tried to become a little less attached to like the outcome of the success and like really focusing on the end result and more just focused on the effort really. And, knowing that if you put in the right effort consistently, like the results and the outcomes will follow. I think at first I was really just focused on like the outcome and,
what was the outcome you're focused on?
Just like, I don't know, vanity stuff or like, let's say at Metadata, it was, I don't know, some arbitrary registration number for like a big event or I don't know, some sort of, podcast download metric, something like that. And it's easy to lose sight of what really matters in that instance. And instead, like with the show that I launched recently, like I was so much more focused on the process and the execution of it. And it's so much more fun when you do it that way because then you're just not chasing, I don't know. Yes, numbers are important and you still need to hit numbers, but you can really let yourself down if you're just focused on that because, you always have to keep going. And there's another thing you have to do and another thing and another thing, and it doesn't stop. And I think I used to get so stressed out before when I was just focused on the outcome and then not realizing that, all right, as soon as you do that, well, here's the next thing that you have to do and it's going to be even bigger. And I think, I've still done well, but by focusing more on the process and the effort, I've just been so much more satisfied.
I remember the days at Metadata. I think you held your first event. What was that event called? Remind me. Demand. Simple. Should have remembered. I don't remember if I spoke at year 1 or 2. I remember if not both. I remember I spoke at it before. It was a digital event. This is kind of where our like paths, I think, like got really close because I was at Gong running events and you were at Metadata running events. And I remember just year 1, whatever the reg, you'll remember. Probably.
I remember the story. Let's see how well you remember it.
Well, the numbers are bad, but I remember the overall. I mean, like my memory for numbers is bad, but I remember the overall was like, let's just say 2,000 for year 1, whatever it was, and talking to you, and as every marketer or content marketer, event marketer listening knows, it is stressful. The goal is always bigger than what you can do.
Yeah.
And maybe that's by design, probably is. But then I remember year 2, we were talking and you were like, I think it was like 6,000. Like it wasn't even double. It was something.
7,500.
Did it go from 2 to 7,500?
It was 5,000 the first year.
5,000.
Actually, no. Sorry.
I don't think it was that much.
No. The first year, my memory is bad. No, it was 5,000 the second year, and then it was 10,000 the third year. But I got out before the third year.
Okay, because I remember being with you 1 and 2, and talking of like how just fucking ridiculous that is. Like it's not even. And the thing is too is, and I coach marketers like, don't trust round numbers for goals.
Yeah.
7,500, 5,000. Those are just vanity. Like that just sounds really good. And I remember you had told me you're like, however much Gong's event Celebrate had done, the word got out because we probably talked about it openly.
Yeah.
And then you're like, thanks, because like my CEO or CMO heard that, and now we have to like do a bigger number just because Gong did it.
Yeah. I remember leaving that conversation thinking like, Gong was the poster child for every B2B SaaS marketer, and thinking that, all right, if that was what Gong's registration number was, we are not even in the same stratosphere, and we're trying for something that's like pretty damn close to that. So I just remember leaving that thinking like, how the hell am I going to do this?
Well, and the challenge, kind of going back to what you're saying too, is like the challenge is when you have a number. I came from sales for 6 years, so I know this very well. And then in marketing, you have reg goals, pipeline goals, any and all metrics. Is it's easy for your self-worth to be aligned with how well or poorly you did against that metric. So I've had the highest of highs and lowest of lows when that is how your identity is, your value is measured. When we blow out numbers, I'm king of the world. I'm the nicest, best person to be around. I'm the best version of me. Miss that number, and it is the exact opposite, where I almost hate myself and I don't want to be around people. And like all of a sudden I'm like, I'm not good. I should get back, like I'm failing. And it took me years, and we'll talk about some of the kind of like, I don't know what to call it, therapy, life coach, the work it took to dissociate myself. Like that is important. I'm not going to say it's unimportant. You grow your career and your business on metrics, but you have to find ways to find joy outside of that. And that's what you've done with the Proof Point, which is your show. And I've done it here, which was, we literally had the metrics meeting this week for the first one with Share Your Genius. If you need a podcast agency, shout out to Share Your Genius. We love them. We both use them. Rachel Downey. And Katie, the kind of like our account manager, she was like, she gave us all these numbers, and she had this big smile. She's like, there's they're really good numbers. Here they are. And I just kind of like sat there, and she's like, what do you think? And I was like, well, one, I didn't make this show for those numbers, so I'm happy. Like I'm not trying to like downplay like how great the show is, but it's like I was measuring the success of the show by how much of the vision did we execute on. And the honestly anecdotal feedback, text messages from you, people saying, dude, I watched the show, it's incredible. And I don't think it's people just telling me that because of who I am. It's like people giving me specific examples or clips, like long text messages, like I heard you in Nahal and it talked about this. Someone texted me and said, I paused it, talked to my wife for 20 minutes about the thing, and then resume the show. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want it to like spark long form thinking. So my point being is it's been like a relief and freeing to not tie myself to the success is these numbers. The success is a mix of my joy in the process, how much did we execute on the vision, and then the numbers like, okay, but like, are people watching at all? Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't agree like anymore. Straight up, like you nailed it. And I think I rode the highs at metadata so hard, and I rode the lows equally as hard. And I think what I've tried to do differently in this role is just stay like a little bit more even keeled. And the success of things doesn't need to always be tied to the metric and tying my happiness to that metric. I still have pipeline and revenue numbers that I need to hit. And, if I don't, I'll be out of a job, but I don't need to get fixated on, some of these arbitrary metrics that really don't matter at the end of the day.
And I have to remind myself is like, look, no founder or maybe even VP wants to hear this. You are going to miss metrics. You are not going to hit every metric for every quarter for your whole career. The key, I think, or at least a part of the key to success in a long career is doing it way more often, and hopefully way more often than not, but giving yourself some of that space and grace. So when you miss it, it's like, okay, hey, even Steph Curry has bad games, or, wow, I'm really digging myself, Warriors didn't make the playoffs this year. Like it happens, right? And you can still be good. You can still be great. And so it's like just kind of giving yourself the, like I said, space and grace to zoom out and just think, you know what, it's okay. Instead of getting upset, get curious. What can I have done differently? What will I change so it doesn't happen again? That was always my big motivator. Miss quota. I remember I'd miss quota. I'd go for this like long 6-7 mile run, like just run out the pain of just, and
Are you a runner?
No, that's the thing. That's like the like distraught like level I would be in. I can't play basketball like that angry, like that emotional. I would just lace up the shoes and just go run through the Presidio in San Francisco. Longest runs I've ever been on, but I would just like run through this, like all the emotions would come through, and it's like, okay, cool. now that I've let myself feel bad, now what? And the thing for me was like, we're not missing quota again. Like we're not doing it twice in a row. You can take one L, but I'm not taking two in a row. And then I, like I said, get curious. Okay, what am I going to do differently? And then you get to a place of like optimism, right? And so it's like, now that you got all the bullshit behind you and negative emotions, like, all right, now let's like get back to work.
Yeah, I think so. One of the things that I've been learning recently is like, we have very aggressive numbers this year at UserEvidence. We're, behind of where we need to be, but there's definitely a lot of things that we're counting on that can go our way to get us closer to where we need to be, like pipeline and revenue wise. And for me, it's looking at, all right, what are the things that we can do to help get us there? And whether it's with our board or whether it's with Evan and Ray, the two co-founders, it's just being like really honest of like, hey, this is a miss right now. We're not where we need to be, but here are the steps that I'm taking to make sure that we get it back on track. And just being straight up and real with them versus trying to like kind of sugarcoat where you are. I think old Mark would have tried to sugarcoat it a little bit more, and current Mark is more focused on just like keeping it real and being honest and not hiding bad news from them, which is something that I've learned, by way of working with Kyle and Brad as my two mentors. So it's been a new thing for me because like you only want to share good news. It's like, oh, look how great everything is. Sunshine and rainbows, and that's not real. That's not how things are all the time. And I think it's gone a long way with them and the board too, because they feel like they can trust me because I'm just being real about it and taking the right steps to get it back on track.
It takes a lot of courage, I think, to be self-accountable. One, to yourself, to have that honest conversation, but two, to your co-founders, whoever's senior to you, and saying, hey, I missed, but if here's why, and here's what I'm doing differently. It's hard to be mad at that person. Like if you're still mad or angry, project at them or whatever, it's like, now you're just being an ass. Like you're just beating them up to beat them up. And so at least for me as like a leader, if someone says, on my team or whatever, like, we missed a number, it wasn't good. If that's all you say, I'm a little disappointed, because it's like, okay, but like, don't just tell me you have a skin knee. Like, what are we doing here about this? But when someone's like, here's, we had like a webinar lately that just didn't perform, which is like zoom out of the world, like one underperforming webinar is like not a big deal in my world.
It's a webinar.
To this individual though, who's younger in her career and webinars are half of her job, huge deal.
Been there.
And so when she, I could tell she was like nervous. We have this like the metric, like there's this like 9 metrics we look at, and then the benchmarks, and hers just like not looking great. I could tell she was like nervous to share this with me. And so my thought was like, this is a learning opportunity for her she's going to learn how to communicate a failure, a missed number. And so I just went through it with her and was like, okay, cool. Like numbers are numbers. Why do you think this missed? And then I got a chance to teach her, was it the title? Was it the speaker? Was it the promo? Was it this? And so she got an opportunity to learn how to analyze a fail. Again, I say failure very, very loosely there. And to me, that's like the opportunity that more marketers need, is to have the opportunity to be analytical in a safe space, to be like, okay, here's why it worked. Okay, now that I know it didn't work, the linear, like what to do next is like pretty obvious. Like if the promo was poor, then maybe we'll do more or better promo. So to me, that's like this very under talked about like kind of skill. And I think it's like in marketing, it's like we get beat up a lot internally in B2B, you get beat up a lot. And so it's easier and more comfortable to just like sweep it under the rug and just move on, versus like really spending a little bit of time there on that pain. And then turning it into like a plan.
I mean, I think like when I was early in my career, I was thinking that, whoever my manager was cared more about the number and, whether we hit it or not. And yes, they do care about it, but if you miss, what they really care about is your analysis and what you think you need to do to get this back in the right direction. And if you miss a number and you give them all of that thinking of how you're going to write this, those are the kind of people that they want.
All right, so what's next? You got to VP. It's been 9-10 months. You're almost on a year. It's still new to me. Maybe it's because we're
I know it still feels new.
It probably should. The whole longevity of your career. It is a very short chapter for now. You mentioned CMO earlier. Something tells me you're not in a race to get there, though. So what's kind of next? Not in like, I want to get to this summit, but maybe how you're starting to think about your current role and like prepping for the next thing.
I think it's, UserEvidence is a Series A startup right now. There's a lot of work that I still need to do and want to do and accomplish. So I think for me, I'm looking at like I want to see this thing through at UserEvidence. It's probably like a 4 or 5 year window here that we've kind of talked about internally. And I think the coolest thing has been, just by meeting and working with Kyle, the journey that he had at Lessonly from when he started as a VP of marketing to when they were acquired by Seismic is like very, very similar to kind of where I feel like I am right now and where I need to get to, which is awesome because he has such good perspective on that. So I really just focused on like this and really seeing it through. And I want this to be one of those, I don't know, kind of things that you can point to on your, I was about to say resume, but like who has a resume anymore?
Right?
But like
your LinkedIn profile.
I know. But like point to on my LinkedIn profile and be like, yeah, like I did that thing and I saw all of it through. And I've always wanted one of those stops on my kind of career journey. And I think this really is the one, just knowing that I've got the two co-founders, the board, the company culture, and just the people of, people that you really want to work with and have fun with and want to have a fulfilling life inside and outside of work. And it just feels like right place, right time. And I'm excited to keep it going.
It is a sweet place to be, the right place at the right time with the right team, like in your career. So I'm happy for you, man. And Kyle will be on the show shortly. Maybe we'll run his episode right after this one. So I'm excited to learn from him too, man. But I just want to say thank you for investing time into me, into this show, and to share how much I respect you and your career, man. Thank you for stopping by and sharing all this with us.
That means a lot coming from you. Appreciate it, my man.
All right. If you're still listening, you must really crave growth. And I respect that. And you don't have to wait until next week's episode for more marketing advice. There are 3 ways I can help you scale your content right now. Every Saturday morning, I publish a newsletter where you'll get content tips and strategies for growing your career, brand, and business. Subscribe now to join thousands of readers. Just tap the link in the show notes. My ebook, Content That Converts, shows you how to confidently grow your reach and audience. This expansive digital playbook, packed with tips, techniques, and examples, reveals the exact strategies and step-by-step processes for converting attention into audience growth and sales. To buy your copy, hit the link in the show notes. You're seeing a pattern. And if you'd like to sponsor this show or partner with The Reader, email me at yo@thereader.co. Yes, that's yo@thereader.co. That's a wrap for now. And if you like the show, go ahead and give us that 5-star rating on Apple. It helps us grow.